The chamber of the Galactic Council stretched like a cathedral carved from crystal and steel. Light from the twin suns of Arion bled through the transparent dome, casting pale gold on the tiers of alien delegates. The hall hummed with translation algorithms, with the occasional mechanical rasp of votes being logged into the records. For all its grandeur, the place smelled of dust and disuse, a monument to a unity that had long since curdled into ritual. Captain Elias Cade sat rigid in the human delegation circle, jaw tight as the vote tally illuminated above. The question was simple. Should the Council dispatch fleets to defend the Rillathai from the Dominion's extermination campaign? The Rillathai, once proud traders of the Rim, now cowered in their ruined cities while the Dominion prepared to finish what they had started. Elias already knew what the result would be. One by one, the banners dimmed. Abstain. Abstain. Negative. The voices rose in hollow justification. The Rillathai hold no vital trade routes. They refuse to sign the Concord's tariff treaties. Our fleets are committed elsewhere. Every word a knife wrapped in diplomacy. Elias's fingers curled into fists. Across the chamber floor, the Rillathai delegation, a pair of thin, gray-scaled envoys draped in torn ceremonial cloth, sank to their knees. Their high crests drooped, a physical collapse of spirit. Their keening cry carried through the hall, even without translation. It was the sound of a people realizing they had been sentenced to die. Elias couldn't take it anymore. He rose, boots grinding against the polished floor, his voice cutting through the hum. So that's it. His words echoed across tiers of silent delegates. You'll watch them burn because it costs you nothing not to care. The Garaxi representative flicked its spine mandibles in irritation. Human, you mistake pragmatism for cruelty. Intervention risks destabilizing the Rim. To act is to endanger millions more. Elias's gaze was steel. To do nothing is to tell every world in this chamber that your promises are worthless. A dozen eyes turned away. The council speaker's neutral tone only made it worse. The vote stands. The Rillathai request for aid is denied. This session is closed. The crystal gavel fell. Just like that, the council washed its hands. Elias didn't sit. He looked once at the envoys, still collapsed in despair, then turned sharply and walked out. His boots rang loud on the crystal steps, each stride a rejection of the chamber's indifference. The corridors outside were quieter, lined with holographic murals of past victories. When the council had supposedly united to preserve justice, Elias remembered studying those battles as a cadet, believing them to be true. Now he saw them for what they were, myths used to mask cowardice. Captain, a voice called after him. Commander Rhea Vance, his second-in-command. Quickened her pace to catch up. Her uniform was as sharp as his, but her eyes searched his face with concern. Don't say it, Elias muttered. You're about to do something reckless. He stopped at a viewport where the sprawl of Arion's orbital docks glimmered against the stars. Rows of ships hung there, diplomatic cruisers, trade barges, and among them the silhouette of his own vessel, HSS Resolute. He stared at it, jaw set. Reckless is letting an entire race vanish while we argue semantics. Elias. Her tone softened, dropping rank for familiarity. The council gave an order. Defying it means sanctions, maybe worse. You know humanity's place in this galaxy is precarious. I know, he admitted. His reflection in the glass looked older than 37, worn by too many compromises. But I also know what it feels like to be abandoned. My grandfather told me how Earth begged for aid during the Siege of Sol. The council debated for months while billions died. We swore we'd never let that happen again. Rhea exhaled slowly. You're going to Rilvac Prime. He met her eyes, with or without you. For a long heartbeat, silence hung between them. Then she straightened. Then it'll be with me. Someone has to keep you alive when your ideals get you shot. A small, tired smile tugged at his mouth. I'll take that as agreement. Hours later, the Resolute stirred in her berth. A mid-class warship. She wasn't the pride of humanity's fleet, but she had teeth, rail cannons along her flanks, torpedo tubes snug in her underbelly, and an AI core that had seen more battles than it cared to count. The crew filed aboard with a quiet resignation, of those who knew their captain well enough not to argue. In the command deck, the hum of power-up filled the air. Screens lit, showing star charts and tactical overlays. Elias settled into the captain's chair, the leather creaking beneath him. Rhea leaned against the console. Final chance to reconsider. Elias didn't look at her. His gaze was locked on the star map, where Rilvac Prime flickered as a faint blue on the rim. "Set course," he said. The engines rumbled, vibration thrumming through the hull. As the Resolute disengaged from dock, Elias saw the Rillathai envoys collapsing to the floor. He thought of their voices, raw with despair, echoing in a chamber of silence. No one else would stand for them, so humanity would. The star stretched into blue as the ship leapt into FDL. Elias sat back, letting the silence of transition wash over him. Every instinct drilled into him as an officer screamed that this was mutiny, that he was throwing humanity into danger. Yet beneath that fear was certainty, solid and unyielding. He remembered his grandfather's words. The galaxy will always find excuses not to act. Don't let that be you. Rhea's voice broke into his thoughts. You know Veyrac won't ignore this. The Dominion will make you a target. Elias glanced at her. Good. Then at least they'll stop pretending the Rillathai don't exist. She shook her head, half amused, half exasperated. You're impossible. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on the streaking stars. No, just human. And with that, the Resolute cut through the void, heading toward a war the galaxy had already abandoned. The Resolute dropped from FDL with a shudder that rippled through her hull. Rilvac Prime filled the forward display, one to jewel the rim, now a scarred husk. Whole continents were charred black, where Dominion firestorms had rolled across them. Cities lay in fractured grids, their towers jagged stumps jutting from rubble. The atmosphere shimmered with ash and faint electromagnetic interference, like the planet itself was bleeding static. No one spoke at first. The crew had seen war zones before, but this was different. This wasn't conquest. It was erasure. Radiation pockets in the southern hemisphere, Rhea reported, her voice clipped. Scattered life signs in the northern valleys. Dominion fleets are gone for now, but probes show they left occupation patrols in orbit. Elias leaned forward in his chair. His stomach turned at the sight of the ruined surface. Take us low. Find survivors. The Resolute slipped into the planet's shadow, skirting patrol routes. Her engines hummed to half power, quiet as a whisper compared to the Dominion behemoths that had scarred the world. They landed in the ruins of a valley settlement. Ash drifted like snow through cracked archways and collapsed dwellings. The air was thin, stinking of burned stone. Elias walked down the ramp with a squad of Marines at his back, pulse rifle slung at his shoulder. His boots crunched over shattered tiles, painted once with intricate mosaics, now gray with soot. Movement flickered at the edges of ruined alleys. Shadows darting, watching. Stay sharp, Rhea muttered beside him. From the rubble, a figure emerged. Small, gaunt, with scales dulled to a sickly gray. Its crest hung limp, eyes sunken yet burning with suspicion. It carried no weapon, only a staff carved from broken steel piping. The Rillathai studied Elias, then rasped in broken galactic standard. Another scavenger? Leave. We have nothing left. Elias lowered his rifle, palms open. We're not scavengers. I'm Captain Elias Cade, Human Star Service. We came to help. At the word human, the alien stiffened. Its gaze darted past Elias to Marines, then back. Skepticism warred with something else. Flicker of recognition, maybe hope. Others crept forward. Thin figures wrapped in rags, scales cracked from malnutrition. Dozens, then scores. A whole pocket of survivors. Their eyes all fixed on him, as though daring him to lie. One elder stepped forward, taller despite his frailty, crest lined with age marks. His voice trembled with restrained anger. You speak of help. We begged your counsel for aid. They turned away. Elias met his gaze without flinching. The council turned away. Not us. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The elder's jaw clenched. Why? Why risk yourselves? You gain nothing from our survival. Elias's answer came from deep within, unpolished but true, because no one else would, and someone has to. Silence stretched. The survivors looked at one another, uncertain. Finally, the elder's shoulders slumped. Weariness broke through his suspicion. Then you are either mad or honest. Both are rare. Rhea leaned close, whispering in Elias's ear. They're starving. Look at them. He nodded once, then tapped his comm, resolute. Initiate supply drop. Full rations, medpacks, shelters. Moments later, cargo drones descended to the ash-filled sky, crates swinging beneath them. The crowd's eyes widened at the sight. Real food, clean water, medicine. When the first crate cracked open and sealed nutrient packs spilled out, the starving broke into desperate motion, clutching supplies as though afraid they'd vanish. Children wept as they bit into their first solid meals in weeks. The elder watched, expression softening. Perhaps we were not forgotten. Elias placed a hand over his chest. You weren't. That night, fires flickered in the ruins, not of destruction but of warmth. The survivors gathered close to the human crew, listening to translators echo in broken cadences. Rilla-thighed children stared at the Marines' armor like they were giants from legends. Some touched the smooth plates with trembling hands, whispering in their own tongue. Elias sat with the elder near a cracked stone fountain, its basin filled with ash. How many of you remain? He asked quietly. The elder's crest drooped. Too few. Our world once held billions. The Dominion left us hundreds of thousands, scattered and hunted. Their patrols sweep the valleys daily. Those that do not kill, they take for labor camps. Rhea grimaced. Why here? What could they gain from this slaughter? The elder's eyes darkened. We defied their tribute. They demanded ships, soldiers, slaves. We said no. They decided to make an example. Elias's hands tightened around the rim of the broken fountain. They won't finish the job. Not while we're here. The elder studied him carefully, then leaned closer. Your people are few. The Dominion is vast. What can you do against them? Elias held his gaze. Fight, and teach you to fight. For a moment, disbelief flickered in the elder's expression. Then, slowly, a faint spark of something older, pride, maybe, lit in his eyes. You would train us? After all we have lost. Yes, Elias said firmly, because you still have something left to fight for. Your children, your home, your right to exist. The elder bowed his head. Then perhaps hope is not as dead as I thought. Dawn came gray through the haze. Marines began setting up perimeter defenses, while medics treated the worst cases of malnutrition. The survivors, once hesitant, started to help, hauling supplies, clearing rubble, organizing distribution. It was clumsy, but it was life. As Elias surveyed the camp from the ramp of the Resolute, Rhea approached with a datapad. Her face was grave. We've picked up long-range scans. Dominion patrols shifting orbit. Something's moving out there. Elias took the pad, studying the red blips closing on their position. Too soon. He'd hoped for more time. How long? He asked. Hours, maybe less. They're coming to finish the sweep. He looked back at the camp where the Rilla-thighed tried, for the first time in months, to act like people instead of prey. Children laughed faintly around a fire. The elder spoke softly with a group of Marines. Fragile threads of hope spun overnight. Elias's jaw hardened. Then we make our stand here. Rhea's eyes flicked to the camp, then to him. With starving civilians? With survivors, Elias corrected. They need to see they're not helpless anymore. That's how we start. She studied him for a long moment, then gave a sharp nod. All right, Captain. Then let's give the Dominion a fight they won't forget. Above, the first Dominion ships pierced the upper atmosphere, their hulls black against the red dawn. The storm was coming. But this time, the Rilla-thighed were not alone. The Dominion's arrival announced itself with thunder. The sky over the valley split as black-hulled frigates descended, their engines trailing fire through the ash haze. The sound rolled across the ruins. Deep metallic final. Elias stood on the ridge above the settlement. Binoculars pressed his eyes. 3 ships, light destroyer class, dropping low for a sweep. Enough firepower to level the survivors in minutes. His jaw clenched. "Status?" he asked. Rhea's voice came through comms, steady despite the tension. "Perimeter shields at 20%. Improvised turrets are online, but they won't hold long." He lowered the binoculars, staring at the people gathering below. Rillathai children huddled near their parents, wide-eyed. Some of the younger men held scavenge rifles, weapons clutched in trembling claws. They had nothing against Dominion armor, but at least they were standing. Elias toggled the channel. "Resolute, engage stealth grid. Hold until my mark. We're drawing them in close." The first Dominion dropships cut through the clouds, black arrows against red dawn. They landed hard on the cracked tiles of the ruined plaza, hydraulic legs smashing into stone. Ramps slammed down. Soldiers poured out, tall, armored, insectal silhouettes with rifles that hissed with plasma charge. The elder Rillathai beside Elias inhaled sharply. "They have come for the call." Elias raised his rifle. "Then we don't let them." Shots cracked. The first wave of Marines opened fire from cover, rail slugs punching into the enemy ranks. The air filled with the scream of plasma and the sharp concussion of human weaponry. The plaza erupted in chaos. Stone shattering, smoke curling, soldiers dropping on both sides. The Rillathai hesitated only for a heartbeat. Then, spurred by Elias's example, they joined in. Their fire was clumsy, aim unsteady, but it was fire nonetheless. The Dominion staggered under resistance they hadn't expected. "Push them back." Elias shouted, ducking behind rubble as a plasma bolt scorched a stone. He popped up, fired 2 clean shots, dropped another soldier. For the first time in months, the Rillathai were not running. They were fighting, but the Dominion adapted quickly. Heavy infantry surged forward, shields glowing as they advanced. The resistance faltered, pinned under suppressive fire. Rhea's voice cut through static. "Elias, we can't hold this line much longer." "Then we change the line," he growled. He tapped comms. Resolute marked target coordinates, Plaza Center. Fire precision strike. There was a pause, then the voice of the ship's AI confirmed. A heartbeat later, the sky ripped open. A kinetic round from orbit slammed into the plaza, vaporizing stone and soldiers alike in a blossom of dust and fire. The shock wave knocked Elias flat, ears ringing, but when he pulled himself up, the Dominion advance was broken. Survivors scrambled back to their dropships, dragging wounded, retreating into smoke. Cheers rose from the Rillathai lines, thin, ragged, but real. For the first time, they had forced the enemy to retreat. Elias didn't join the cheer. His eyes tracked the rising ships. This wasn't victory. This was only the beginning. Hours later, the settlement smoldered in uneasy quiet. Survivors tended wounds. Marines reset defenses. Rillathai warriors cleaned scavenged weapons, their faces alight with a mix of fear and pride. The elder found Elias by the ruined fountain again. His scales caught the weak light, his voice low but steady. "We stood with you today. For that, my people thank you." Elias nodded. "You didn't just stand, you fought. You showed them you won't be erased." The elder's gaze darkened. The Dominion will not forget this. They will return stronger. What then? Elias didn't answer right away. He knew the truth. The Dominion's fury would come down harder, aimed not just at the Rillathai, but at humanity for daring to interfere. Rhea appeared, holding a datapad. "Captain, you'll want to see this." She projected the feed. A Dominion broadcast. Lord Commander Verak himself, towering in ceremonial armor, speaking to his fleet. His voice carried the confidence of one who had never been denied. "The humans defy us. They shelter the weak, believing courage will shield them. They are mistaken. Let this world be the pyre that burns away their arrogance." The feed cut. Elias felt the weight of the message settle like lead in his chest. Verak wasn't just coming for the Rillathai anymore. He was coming for him. The next days blurred into frantic work. Elias and his crew trained the Rillathai in basic tactics: cover fire, ambush, sabotage. They built traps from rubble and power conduits, taught them how to hold ground in urban ruins. It was crude, desperate, but every day the Rillathai grew less like victims and more like soldiers. One evening, as dusk bled to the haze, Elias sat with a young Rillathai warrior, scales still bright with youth. The boy's hands shook as he cleaned a scavenge rifle. "Captain," he said haltingly, "I was told fighting them is useless, that resistance only brings more death. Why you keep trying?" Elias looked at him, seeing not just a boy but every human face that had once asked the same question on Earth during its darkest wars. He spoke quietly but with iron. "Because survival isn't given. It's taken. If you stop fighting, they've already won." The boy nodded slowly, determination edging into his eyes. Word of humanity's defiance spread faster than Elias had expected. Intercepted transmissions confirmed it. The Council debated sanctions against humanity for destabilizing galactic order. Delegates condemned his actions, some calling him reckless, others branding him a warmonger. Elias read the reports in silence, then set them aside. He didn't care about their debates. The only voices that mattered were the ones around him, the people who finally believed they had a chance. Still, the consequences weighed heavy. Humanity stood alone against the Dominion's wrath. Night fell again. The stars above were broken by the silhouettes of Dominion ships gathering in orbit, their numbers swelling. The storm was building. Elias stood on the ridge, wind tugging at his coat, watching the black shapes blot out the sky. Rhea joined him, expression grim. "They're bringing more than a patrol this time," she said. "I know." She studied him. "You realize what this means. Veyrak wants to crush us in one blow." Elias's eyes didn't leave the dark horizon. "Then we make sure he pays for it." Below, the Rillathai moved in the ruins, their fires burning stubbornly against the night. A people who had been ready to fade now carried weapons, now looked to him. The Dominion's shadow stretched across the planet. But in that shadow, something new stirred, defiance fragile but unyielding, and Elias intended to make it burn. The Dominion fleet arrived at dusk, blotting out the stars like a storm cloud of steel. Frigates, destroyers, carriers, far more than Elias had hoped to hold off. From a ridge above the settlement, he counted their outlines through the ash-filled sky. Engines burned red, their formation precise, merciless. "They're committing a full strike force," Rhea said beside him. Her voice was tight, no trace of her usual dry wit. "They mean to end this." Elias lowered the binoculars, jaw set. "Then we bleed them for every meter." The Resolute rose from her concealed canyon and took position in the upper atmosphere. Shields flared, weapons primed. The plan was desperate but simple. Lure the Dominion ships into the asteroid belt trailing the system, a labyrinth of rock and ice where size would become a liability. Course plotted. The helm officer reported. Elias's hand rested on the arm of his chair. "Let's make them chase us." The first exchange came fast. Dominion frigates surged forward, plasma barges lighting the void. The Resolute twisted between bursts, her smaller frame darting like a knife among sledgehammers. Rail slugs hammered back, piercing one frigate's hull in a spray of molten shards. The crew moved with sharp precision. Every order snapped, every motion drilled. On the surface, the Rillathai hunkered behind improvised defenses, watching the sky burn. For them, the humans were fighting not just for a planet, but for the proof that someone, anyone, cared. As the Dominion pressed, Elias gave the order, "Helm run." The Resolute turned and burned hard toward the asteroid field. The chase was brutal. Heavy cruisers loomed behind, their weapons gouging holes into space itself. The Resolute shook under near misses, alarm shrieking as shields flared white. Elias gripped the chair's arm so tightly his knuckles ached. "Shields at 40%. Rhea shouted over the din, "Keep her together." Elias snapped, "We need them deeper." Minutes stretched like hours. Then the asteroids engulfed them. Massive rocks tumbled through the void, some the size of cities, colliding in slow, crushing silence. The Resolute darted between them, venting chaff and decoys, weaving a deadly path. The Dominion followed, too proud to pull back, too furious to let prey slip. "Now," Elias said. The trap snapped shut. Mines laid earlier detonated, rocks splintering into a storm of shrapnel. Dominion frigates smashed apart, hulls torn open by stone and steel. Human cannons fired in the chaos, crippling another ship, The asteroid belt became a graveyard lit by fire. Cheers rose across the Resolute's deck, but Elias didn't join them. He knew better. This wasn't victory, it was reprieve. The Dominion had more ships in orbit, and their commander wasn't a fool. Lord Commander Varac's response came swiftly. Broadcast lit every channel, his voice like iron dragged over stone. "Human Captain," the transmission growled, "you have chosen defiance. You shelter vermin, and dishonor yourself with cowardly traps. Hear me now. In 72 hours, I will scour Rilvac Prime. No valley, no cavern, no child will remain, and your kind will share their grave." The channel cut. Silence gripped the bridge. Even the hum of consoles seemed muted. Rhea turned to Elias. Face pale. "He means it." Elias's jaw tightened. "Then we have 3 days to prove him wrong." Back on the surface, the news spread quickly. Fear rippled through the camp. Parents clutching children tighter. Warriors staring at the sky as if it had already begun to fall. The elder approached Elias by the half-collapsed fountain, crest low. You heard his words. "Our end is sealed." Elias looked him in the eye. "Not if we fight." The elder's voice cracked with anguish. "Fight with what? Stones against fire? Your ship cannot hold back an armada." "No," Elias admitted. "But together, maybe we can hold long enough. Long enough to make the galaxy see what's happening here." The elder studied him, torn between despair and belief. Finally he spoke. "You ask us to defy not only the Dominion, but fate itself." Elias's voice was steady. "Fate isn't written. We write it." The next hours became a frenzy of preparation. The Rillathai, once broken, now threw themselves into work. Ruins were reinforced into bunkers. Old energy cells were rigged into bombs. Children carried water, while warriors dug trenches. Marines trained them relentlessly. How to fire, how to cover each other, how to survive the first assault. Rhea found Elias at dusk, watching the makeshift militia line up with salvage rifles. "You realize," she said quietly, "if the council doesn't intervene, this is a last stand." Elias didn't look at her. "Maybe that's what it takes. If the galaxy won't act, then we'll make them watch." She frowned. "And if they just watch you burn? Then at least they'll know we didn't go quietly." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Rhea exhaled, her voice softer. "You never make anything easy, do you?" He finally looked at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Would you follow me if I did?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Always." That night, transmissions from the Galactic Council crackled through secure channels. The verdict was brutal. Humanity was to be censured for unauthorized aggression. Economic sanctions threatened, diplomatic isolation promised. Elias read the decree in silence, then tossed the tablet aside. Rhea caught his eye. "They're not just abandoning us. They're punishing us." He shrugged, weary but resolute. "Doesn't change a thing. The Council has made their choice. So have we." The following dawn, Dominion ships darkened the horizon. The ground shook as bombardments lit the mountains. Smoke climbed into the sky in choking plumes. In the trenches, Rillathai gripped weapons with trembling claws. Their fear was raw, but for the first time, it wasn't despair, it was defiance. They had chosen to fight, and that made all the difference. Elias stood among them, rifle in hand, coat streaked with dust. He looked down the line, meeting eyes, human and Rillathai alike. "Listen to me," he called over the rumble of approaching engines. "They think you're helpless. They think no one will stand for you. Prove them wrong. Show them you're still here. Show them you matter." The words carried, translated through calms into hissing Rillathai speech. Heads lifted. Crests rose. Rhea shouted from the command post. "Contact! Enemy infantry inbound." Elias raised his rifle. "Then let's remind them what it means to fight." The battle began as Dominion dropships tore through the sky, their black silhouettes blotting out the pale sun. But this time, the defenders were ready. Turrets thundered, bombs buried under rubble ignited, flipping armored vehicles into fireballs. Rillathai warriors fired from cover, their aim sharper after days of training. The Dominion pushed hard, but the line held. Human ingenuity and desperate courage turned ruins into a fortress. For every trench they overran, a counterattack clawed it back. The valley became a battlefield where survival itself was the prize. Through smoke and fire, Elias fought alongside them. Every shot a promise kept. The galaxy had abandoned Rilvac Prime. The Dominion meant to erase it. But here, against all odds, defiance burned, and it refused to die. Ash swirled through choking smoke, and the air stank of ozone and blood. Dominion troops poured forward in unrelenting waves, their armor glinting under the dim light of the sun struggling through haze. The defenders clung to shattered barricades, trading lives for moments. Elias stood in the center, rifle empty, bayonet slick. Each breath burned, each heartbeat louder than the guns. Rillathai and Marines fought shoulder to shoulder beside him, their cries overlapping in a single defiant roar. Left flank collapsing. Rhea's voice cut through comms, hoarse but steady. Elias scanned chaos. Dropships were landing at the ridge, disgorging more soldiers than they could possibly stop. Dominion banners unfurled like black wings over the battlefield. For every foe that fell, 3 more advanced, and then the ground quaked. The Dominion flagship, Imperious Dawn, descended low into the atmosphere, dwarfing the sky. Its shadow swallowed the valley. At its prow stood Lord Commander Verac himself, his image projected in towering hologram across the field. His tusked face sneered, voice amplified so all could hear. "Pathetic creatures," he thundered. "You think defiance makes you strong? You will be remembered as embers crushed beneath Dominion boots." Elias wiped grime from his face, eyes hard. "Rhea," he said quietly, "get me to him." Her head whipped toward him. "You can't be serious. He's the spine of this beast. Break him and the body stumbles. That's suicide. Then it's a fair trade." Minutes later, cloaked under the din of battle, a battered shuttle lifted from behind the lines. Its hull rattled, patched with scavenged plating, engines coughing fire. Inside, Elias strapped in opposite Rhea, their eyes locking in the brief silence before the storm. "You know this ends with one of you dead," she said. Elias's voice was flat. "That's the point." The shuttle cut through smoke, weaving between falling debris. Alarms wailed as Dominion cannons tracked them, but asteroids still drifting from the earlier trap cluttered the sky, forcing split-second firing delays. It was enough. They punched through the carrier screen and latched onto the Imperious Dawn's hull with a gut-wrenching clang. "Docking complete," Rhea said. "Boarding tubes unstable, but it'll hold." Elias rose, checked the blade sheath at his side, and pulled his sidearm. "You're staying here." "The hell I am." He met her gaze, softer now. "If I fall, someone has to bring the fleet home." For a moment, she looked ready to argue. Then she swallowed hard, nodded once. "Make it count." The corridors of the Imperious Dawn were cathedral-like, towering and cold, lined with alien banners. Guards rushed them, but Elias moved like a storm, sidearm cracking, blade flashing when rounds ran dry. His boots echoed across steel floors slick with blood. Step by step, he carved a path toward the throne chamber. Doors groaned open. There, beneath a vaulted dome of obsidian glass, stood Verac. He was colossal even without the ornate warplate he wore, tusks gleaming, cloak trailing like spilled ink. Around him, banners of conquered worlds hung like trophies. "So," Verac rumbled, voice carrying effortlessly, "the human comes to die." Elias tossed aside his emptied pistol, shoulders squared. "No, I came to end this." The duel began with a thunderclap. Verac's blade was a massive cleaver of black alloy, each swing tearing through air with lethal force. Elias darted close, his own blade a fraction the size, steel ringing against alien metal. Sparks showered with every clash. "You are nothing," Verac snarled, driving Elias back. "One world among thousands. Why, fight." Elias's teeth gritted. "Because you think no one will." Verac's laugh was thunderous, cruel. He pressed harder, blows shattering pillars, the floor cracking beneath their struggle. Elias fought with desperation, slipping past each swing, cutting shallow wounds across alien armor. Still, the Dominion King was relentless. A crushing backhand sent Elias crashing against a wall. Pain flared across his ribs. His blade skittered out of reach. Veyrac advanced. Cleaver raised for final stroke. Die forgotten, the king growled. But Elias rose, bloodied, staggering. He reached into his coat and drew the last weapon hidden there. Not a gun, not a blade, but a slender, needle-thin device no larger than his hand. A diplomat's tool. A relic from old Earth. Silent. Precise. Veyrac's eyes widened too late. Elias lunged, jamming the injector beneath the alien's jaw. A sharp hiss cut through the chamber as the compound surged. For an instant, silence held. Then the king's body seized, his cleaver falling with a thunderous clang. His massive frame crashed to the floor, motionless. The Dominion King was dead. Alarms blared across the imperious dawn. Commanders shouted. Formations wavered. Without Veyrac's command, the Dominion fleet faltered, its cohesion unraveling into chaos. From the valley below, Rhea saw it happen. Enemy lines broke, retreat signals flashing across their ranks. Marines and Rillathai surged forward, driving them back with a roar that shook the mountains. On the throne deck, Elias leaned against a broken pillar, chest heaving. His blade lay forgotten. His coat was torn, his sides soaked with blood, but his eyes stayed fixed on a fallen giant. Rhea's voice came through comms, thick with disbelief. Elias, is it done? He forced the words past ragged breaths. It's done. Hours later, as the smoke cleared, the valley was quiet again. Dominion ships fled the system, their retreating engines like fading stars. Wreckage burned across the horizon. Bodies, human, Rillathai, alien, littered the ground. The cost was carved into every scar, every grave. But the people still stood. The elder approached Elias where he sat on the broken steps of the old fountain, his hands still stained with blood. The Rillathai's voice trembled. You silenced their king. You gave us back our world. Elias shook his head slowly. No, you gave it back yourselves. I just cleared the way. The elder bowed low, crest touching the ground. For a people who had lived in fear for generations, it was more than gratitude. It was reverence. Rhea joined him, slumping down beside him. Exhaustion etched into every line of her face. She nudged his shoulder. You realize what you've just done? You killed their king. The Dominion won't forget this. Elias exhaled, eyes heavy. Good. Neither will anyone else. For a long moment, they sat in silence, watching survivors rebuild fires among the ruins. The night sky above was clear again, stars returning one by one. Do you think the council will finally listen now? Rhea asked softly. Elias leaned back, gaze fixed on the heavens. They don't have a choice. We've shown them the truth. Humanity doesn't just fight for itself. His voice hardened, quiet but certain. We fight for anyone who needs it. And so the war that began with demands for submission ended with silence. The silence of a king who thought himself untouchable, and the silence that followed when humanity proved otherwise. In that silence, across a wounded world, hope was reborn.